week it's been. It's been a whole year this week. Or so it seems. Lots of things have gone on. Lots of good things, lots of bad things. I'm not going to talk about either the good or the bad things. Because Muse actually had a reader reach out to me to talk about something particular. So I thought, why not? I'm amenable. I love my readers. I love the back and forth. I love communicating with them. I would hug them all if I could. Not right now because of a pandemic, but when the pandemic is over, maybe I'll go on a world tour of hugging. Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be just absolutely wonderful to walk around the world and just hug everybody you see? That'd feel good. I think everybody right now needs a hug. Come on, bring it in. Bring it in. Let's just hug it out. Okay, so Kelly Rickard, who is a longtime reader and a wonderful, wonderful human being, wanted me to talk about killing off characters. Now, when you peddle within the genre of horror, you're going to kill off some characters. It's unavoidable. It's absolutely unavoidable. And most of the time, we like to think that we're killing off characters for a reason. Unfortunately, the truth is sometimes in the horror genre, the truth of the matter is a lot of times writers kill off characters just so they can show off their prowess at killing off characters. But the thing is, and I get this question a lot. Readers ask me, what character was hardest for you to kill off? Do you enjoy killing off characters? And was there a character that you really hated to kill off? Actually, Kelly asked those questions of me. Now, this is a hard question to answer in all honesty, or in an honest way. The thing is, and again, I'm speaking from my perspective, and this is from a point of truth here. As a writer in my career now, I get really attached to the characters that I write. So much so that there are times when I go about my life where things happen, and I actually have to stop and think, did that interaction just happen with somebody real, or did it happen with one of my characters and I am transferring it from fiction to reality? That happens to me a lot. And granted, I'm getting older, so my memory isn't exactly what it once was, but I'll be just humming along during the day and I'll remember something, and then I have to stop and go, okay, did what I just remember actually happen in real life, or did it happen in the book that I'm writing or a book that I previously wrote? That's how deeply connected I am to my stories and my characters that I write. Now, it wasn't that way when I first started. In fact, when I first started, and this really didn't happen until I kind of dove into the zombie genre. At one point, one of my fans of the iZombie series labeled me the Zombie King. That's where that came from. They said that I was the Stephen King of the zombie genre. I was flattered by that name, and they called me that name so much that it stuck. And for a while on social media, I was referring to myself, and it was silly. I don't know why, but it just happened. But back in the day, the early days of the iZombie series, I told people, I said, no character is off limits. Any character in this series can die. And I think I did that as a challenge to myself and to my readers to say, you might get attached to this character, but there's no guarantee that this character is going to live. Now, here's the thing. And I really, really, really learned this, really learned this while I was watching The Walking Dead. Now, I haven't watched that show in a long time. I'm not going to say why. It doesn't really matter why. I just haven't watched it in a long time. But while I was watching that show, I saw on social media how profoundly attached to these characters people became. And there was the whole meme, if Daryl dies, we riot. I think that's what it was. People were so attached to this one character that they said, if you kill this character off, we will not continue watching. And that stuck to me. Stuck in me. That really hit me hard. Because I started to realize that I have to actually step back a little bit and go, how does the reader view this? Not just me. Because I can be writing along and say, I'm kind of bored of this character. Let's get rid of him. And I'll get back to that in a second. But I had to step back and go, what is the perspective of the reader? I have created characters that they relate to on some level. And they enjoy. And when I first started writing the iZombie series, originally it was, everybody knows, not everybody knows. Some people know that originally it was going to be just a one-off book, iZombie I, which is why iZombie I ended the way it ended. I'm not going to tell anybody in case you haven't read that book. But it ended in such a way where it became clear that, okay, well, that's the end. But it got really popular. And I realized, let's keep it going. But how was I to keep it going? Well, fortunately, I wrote another character in the book that people really enjoyed. So I was able to pick that series up with that character. And then I thought, it would be really cool. Okay, it's going to be a trilogy, 3 books. It would be really cool if I had the first book told from the perspective of this character, the second book told from the perspective of the other character, and then the third book told from the perspective of the bad guys. I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. And then I can just kill off whoever I wanted because it's going to be a trilogy. So I wrote the third book, and the series was still really popular. And people wanted more. And I realized there's a whole hell of a lot of story left to tell. So fortunately, I still had that one character. And by the end of the third book, some of the really cool characters had been killed off because I thought it was just going to be a trilogy. So I thought, okay, I've got to do something to bring in some other characters. And I've got to make them strong that people will want to follow them. So I wrote this gang of characters. And by the end of that next book, it all kind of settled in to this group of people that could survive this whole thing together, and people would want to watch them grow. And they continued on. And at that point, I realized that I had to keep that core group of characters together and not kill any of them off, because I can't just because once you get something working, once you get this symbiotic relationship going, and it works like a well-oiled machine, if you remove one of its parts, you've got to add something else back to it to keep it running smoothly. And if you've ever participated in a group that worked together really well, and somebody left that group, when you bring someone else back into that group, some new person, there's a good chance that that group is not going to function as well as it once did. So you run risk. Now, there are pros and cons there. You bring this new person in, and you've got this whole new dynamic to deal with as a writer, and then you get to kind of do the roller coaster again. But the thing is when that group works really well together, as a writer, you don't have to worry about that. It's established. So you've got this core group that goes through the arc of the new book. And all you need to worry about at that point is you don't have to worry about that dynamic because it's established. You have to worry about all of the extraneous stuff. Because if you have this core group functioning properly, right? And then you remove one of the pieces from it and you move them on to the next story, the next book, you not only have to worry about all of the extraneous stuff, you've got to also have to worry about making sure that core group can stay together and function properly. Now, here's the other element of it that kind of complicates this. One of the things that I set out to do in the iZombie series is I wanted to write a series about the apocalypse that was believable. I wanted to ask questions and be able to answer those questions. Now, here's the thing. If we were really faced with the apocalypse, you have to ask yourself who would survive. Not everybody would survive. So as a writer, you have to write characters that function in this core group of people that can survive or can help those that can't to make it through. Because if you create characters that cannot survive this apocalypse, and you make them survive the apocalypse without any level of believability, then you're going to start losing people. So when you do bring someone into that core group that can't survive, let's say you got this fantastic group of survivalists or whatever that's in this group that have managed to come together and build this relationship, and they all have these certain abilities that function really well together, and they can really, really make it through this disaster. And then you bring on, let's say you bring on a YouTube influencer who has spent their life in front of a camera, doing, I don't know, makeup tutorials or something like that, right? Now, you brought someone, I'm not knocking people that do makeup tutorials. That's not what this is about. I'm just trying to make a point here. You bring that person in, and what survival skill do they have? Is it real? Is it believable? So when you kill somebody off in your group, you either have to have someone in that group pick up the slack, or someone's in that group pick up the slack, or you've got to bring in a new character, make it believable, and make them function within the group. Now, with the iZombie series, it took me a while simply because of the way I wrote it, with the intention of it first being a single book and then a trilogy. It took me a while to get that core group together. And once they came together, I said, I have to keep them intact. That doesn't mean that I can't at some point kill one of them off, because it makes for great drama. That's like in the first Fear book. I knew in the first Fear book that I was going to have, I went into it knowing that there were two characters that would always be in the series. Vega and Janet. They will always be in the series. They have to be. But I knew that I could bring in other people and they may not survive. So during the first book, I brought in one of the first characters I brought in outside of Vega and Janet. I brought in, and I did this intentionally. I made people fall for this character, knowing that I was going to put an end to him because it made for great drama. And then, of course, I brought someone else in that was almost a drop-in replacement for that character, so that those people that fell for him would fall for this new person. It's almost like a younger, better model of that character that I first brought in. But you have to be careful about that. You can't just, as a writer, you can't just willy-nilly kill off characters. It's got to be thought through, which is challenging when you write like I write. Because I don't think things through. I just let the universe tell me what to write. But when I get to a point in a story where it's obvious that someone's got to go, then I have to stop and think, okay, if I kill this character off, what does that do to the group? And how can I solve the problem that will occur because this character is no longer with the group? I mean, you can always think of it in terms of D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. You've got a group with a fighter, a cleric, a bard, a thief, a healer, and a scout. Whatever. Okay, so you've got these people, okay? And you're going along, you're doing your D&D things, and you're casting your spells, and you're slamming your swords, and you're bashing your shields, and you're eating your rations, and the dungeon master is rolling his dice, and blah, 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 and blah, and you're eating snacks, and you know the whole routine if you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons. And then one of your group dies. Pew! Bye-bye, scout. I think this was the scout. So now what's left of this group doesn't have the means to track. They don't have a way. They don't know. They might not know where to go. What do they do? Oh my gosh. Well, you've also got this other player that's like, I don't have a character now. I'm dead. So maybe this other player has to create a new character, but this group still doesn't have the ability to locate things. So maybe this guy, I'm going to be an elf. I'm going to be an archer elf, but also has tracking skills. Yeah, that's what we'll do. So you have to think a few steps ahead of yourself if you come into a situation where you're going to kill a character off. Now, I've killed off so many characters because I've written over 40 books. And when I get asked the question, what was the hardest character to kill off? Well, first and foremost, if I really answer that question, then I'm giving things away, and I don't want to give anything away of any of my books. But probably the main death in iZombie was probably the hardest. Simply because I really enjoyed writing that book. It was my first horror book that I wrote. And when I killed that person off, in my back of my mind, I'm like, well, that's the end of this. And that was hard because I think subconsciously I wanted that series to continue all along. And I've had other instances where I'm writing along and the universe says, that person dies. I'm like, what? No, I don't want to kill this character off. But obviously the universe has some reason why they want me to kill this character off. So I kill it off, kill that person off. And I'm like, oh man, now what am I going to do? I just killed off a love interest or whatever. Now I've got to find a way to fill that void, not just for the readers and the story and the characters and the universe, but for me. Because I really, really do get attached to these characters. One of the reasons why, like this is one of the first times that I have bam, bam, bam written 3 books in a series. Well, that's actually not true because I wrote Fear 1, and then I wrote Defying Gravity, then Fear 2, and then right away I wrote Fear 3. Speaking of which, when I wrote Defying Gravity, I'm like, I ain't killing anybody off. Of course, it's not horror. Actually, that's not totally true, but the deaths that happen in Defying Gravity happen outside of the realm of reality, so they're not really deaths. But I knew that there was something special about these characters when I was writing it, that I'm like, these people are all going to live. I don't know if I answered your questions, Kelly, but there you go. I don't like to kill off characters anymore. I used to. I used to have fun with it. It was almost sport to me. But now I write characters that I like. I write characters that I hope that the readers like, and they don't want to be killed off. And it's important that writers are writing characters that are dimensional enough that if they are to be killed off, that the loss will actually impact the story or the series or whatever. And if that happens, if you kill off a character that is that dimensional and that realistic, it will have a profound effect. And you think, oh, when I kill this character off, it's going to have a ripple effect throughout the universe. That means this character's been written really well. Now I've got to replace that character with someone equally as strong. And hopefully I succeed to do that. So there you go. The death of characters. I don't have any plans on killing anybody off in Fear 3. At least not the main group. But those snarky cannibals are going to go. But they'll be replaced by more snarky cannibals. So, it all works out in the end. Anyway, that's all I got, Muse. Let's hope that the next couple of weeks are... I almost said it. I almost said the A word in such a way that it would not apply to you, but to everything, which actually is pretty apropos right now. So let's just go with it, okay? I hope the next 2 weeks, I think you know what I'm hinting at, are awesome.